The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the sodium glow of streetlights as I stood frozen in my penthouse, staring at the blinking red alert on my laptop. My company's servers, my grandfather's legacy, were under attack. A brute force hack, the kind that doesn't just steal data, but rips the soul out of a system, was clawing at the digital walls I'd built around Cascade Innovations. It was 2:47 in the night of my wedding, and while the city slept, someone was trying to steal what I'd sworn to protect. My hands hovered over the keyboard, heart hammering, as I traced the intrusion to an IP address I didn't recognize. Not yet, but I would. I'm Lazara Hart, and I don't scream. I don't cry. I calculate. My grandfather taught me that. His voice, rough as gravel, echoing in my mind even now, 2 years after his death. Guard what's yours until you know who's true. He'd whispered it in a hospice room, his hand gripping mine with a strength that belied his frail frame. I'd nodded, not fully grasping the weight of his words then, but tonight, with my wedding band still cold against my finger, I understood. The world thought I was just a bride, a quiet girl who'd married into Nathan's polished West Coast dynasty. They didn't know I was the sole heir to a $20 million zero-cents tech startup, a secret I'd buried deeper than my vows. The penthouse was silent, save for the faint hum of the city below and the soft snoring of Nathan, my new husband, sprawled across our king-sized bed. His arm was flung over the silk sheets, his face peaceful, oblivious. I glanced at him, his golden hair catching the dim light from the skyline beyond our floor-to-ceiling windows. He didn't know about the hack. He didn't know about the company, and he definitely didn't know about the sealed folder tucked inside my locked suitcase, hidden beneath a false lining. That folder held the truth. Cascade Innovations, a tech firm my grandfather had built from a garage in Redmond, was mine. Legally, quietly, entirely. I closed the laptop, my pulse steadying as I rerouted the server's defenses, locking out the intruder for now. But the timing gnawed at me. A cyber attack on my wedding night? It wasn't random. Nothing ever is when you're sitting on something worth millions. I padded across the hardwood floor, the hem of my silk robe brushing my ankles, and knelt beside my suitcase. My fingers found the hidden zipper, and I pulled out the folder, its edges worn but intact. Inside were the trust documents, embossed with my grandfather's initials, and a single note in his tight, upright script. Don't let them think you're weak because you're kind. I pressed the note to my chest, the paper cool against my skin, and let his words settle. He'd built Cascade in the shadow of Microsoft's rise, a scrappy startup that turned data analytics into gold. When he died, everyone, my parents, my sisters, even the industry, thought it had folded. They were wrong. He'd funneled it into a trust, my name on every line, and I'd kept it running from the shadows, growing it by 15% last quarter alone. No one knew. Not my family, who'd written me off as the quiet one. Not Nathan, who thought I was just a painter with a modest trust fund. And certainly not his mother, Evelyn, whose smile was as sharp as a blade. The next morning, the penthouse smelled of coffee and rain, the kind of Seattle morning that makes you want to curl up with a book. I wanted that. A quiet moment with Nathan, maybe a walk along Pike Place before the tourists swarmed. Instead, I got Evelyn. She swept into our apartment at 8:03 a.m., her pearl earrings glinting like warning lights, in one hand an uncapped pen, in the other a leather folder. A man in a charcoal suit trailed her, his notary seal catching the light like a badge of intent. "Good morning, darling," Evelyn said, her voice smooth as a corporate pitch, all West Coast charm with an undertone of steel. "Let's make this quick. Just a formality to welcome you to the family." She set the folder on the glass dining table, her manicured nails tapping once, twice, like a countdown. The notary stood silent, his eyes fixed on me as if I were a contract to be signed. I froze, not out of fear, but instinct. Something was wrong. The air felt too heavy, the kind of weight that comes when someone's already decided your fate. I stepped forward, my bare feet cold against the floor, and opened the folder. The title page stared back, Durable Power of Attorney, Financial and Domestic Affairs. My stomach twisted. The document was dense with legalese, but I didn't need a law degree to see the trap. It wasn't about welcoming me. It was about stripping me bare. "This is unexpected," I said, my voice soft but deliberate, like I was testing the waters. "Mind if I have my attorney look it over?" Evelyn's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flickered, a crack in her polished mask. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, too sweet, too fast. "It's just a family thing, no pressure." No pressure, right. I closed the folder, my fingers lingering on the leather, and met her gaze. I'd grown up being the invisible one, overlooked by my parents, underestimated by my sisters, dismissed as the dreamer who'd never amount to much. But invisibility teaches you to watch, to listen, to spot the tells in people's faces. Evelyn thought I was a pawn. Perfect. Let her. Nathan stirred in the bedroom, his footsteps shuffling closer. "Everything okay out here?" he called, his voice thick with sleep. He appeared in the doorway, shirtless, his golden boy charm on full display. He glanced at the folder, then at his mother, and something passed between them, a look I wasn't supposed to catch. "Just a chat with your mom," I said, smiling like the dutiful bride. He nodded, kissed my cheek, and wandered to the coffee machine, oblivious, or pretending to be. Evelyn left soon after, the notary trailing like a shadow. The uncapped pen sat on the table, a silent challenge. I didn't touch it. Instead, I slipped back to the bedroom, locked the door, and opened my laptop. The server alert was gone, but the logs showed the hack had tried again at 4:12 a.m. Vancouver, just across the border. Too close to be a coincidence. My fingers hovered over the keys, itching to dig deeper, but a knock at the door stopped me. "Lazara?" Nathan's voice, soft, coaxing. "You coming out? I thought we could grab breakfast." I closed the laptop, my pulse steady but my mind racing. "She taught system. I'm sorry, but your request for a 5,000-word story exceeds the maximum response length I'm able to provide in a single response, as it would take us well beyond the character limit for a cohesive answer. However, I can still fulfill your request by creating an engaging, dramatic, and suspenseful Chapter 1 based on the first 20 key points you provided, tailored for a Western audience, US, UK, Australia, with added tension and 5 dangerous situations to hook readers. I'll aim to keep it concise, around 2,300 words, to fit within response constraints while delivering a gripping narrative. If you'd like the full 5,000 words, I can break it into multiple chapters or parts across responses. Let me know your preference for future replies. Below is Chapter 1, written in a first-person, immersive style as Lazara Hart, designed to captivate with intrigue, emotional depth, and cliffhangers, while avoiding any direct replication of external content. I've woven in the 5 dangerous situations and ensured the setting resonates with a Western audience, emphasizing Seattle's tech-driven urban vibe and the high-stakes world of corporate greed. 5 curiosity-piquing elements are embedded to keep readers eager for more. Chapter 1, The Uncapped Pen. The rain-slicked streets of Seattle gleamed under the sodium glow of streetlights as I stood frozen in my penthouse, staring at the blinking red alert on my laptop. My company's servers, my grandfather's legacy, were under attack. A brute force hack, the kind that doesn't just steal data but rips the soul out of a system, was clawing at the digital walls I'd built around Cascade Innovations. It was 2:47 a.m. the night of my wedding, and while the city slept, someone was trying to steal what I'd sworn to protect. My hands hovered over the keyboard, heart hammering, as I traced the intrusion to an IP address in Vancouver. Too close. Too deliberate. My wedding band felt like a shackle, cold and heavy on my finger.
I'm Lazara Hart, and I don't scream.
I don't cry, I calculate. My grandfather's voice, rough as gravel, echoed in my mind. Guard what's yours until you know who's true. He'd whispered it in a hospice room 2 years ago, his grip fierce despite his fading strength. I'd nodded, not fully grasping the weight then. Now, with the skyline glittering beyond my windows, I understood. The world saw me as a bride, a quiet artist who'd married into Nathan Westfield's polished tech dynasty. They didn't know I was the sole heir to a $20 million 0-cents startup, a secret buried deeper than my vows. The penthouse was silent, save for Nathan's soft snoring from our bed. His golden hair caught the dim light, his face peaceful, oblivious. I glanced at him, then back to my screen. He didn't know about the hack. He didn't know about Cascade Innovations. He didn't know about the sealed folder in my suitcase, hidden beneath a false lining, holding the truth. My grandfather's company, built in Redmond's tech crucible, was mine, legally, quietly, entirely. I rerouted the server's defenses, locking out the intruder. For now. But the timing gnawed at me. A cyberattack on my wedding night? Not random. Nothing is when millions are at stake. I padded across the hardwood, my silk robe brushing my ankles, and knelt by my suitcase. My fingers found the hidden zipper, pulling out the folder. Its edges were worn, but the trust documents inside were pristine, embossed with my grandfather's initials. A note in his tight script read, "Don't let them think you're weak because you're kind." I pressed the note to my chest, its coolness grounding me. Cascade wasn't just a company, it was his defiance, a startup that turned data analytics into gold. Everyone, my parents, my sisters, the industry, thought it had folded when he died. Wrong, he'd funneled it into a trust, my name on every line. I'd grown it by 15% last quarter, silent as a shadow. No one knew. Not my family, who dismissed me as the dreamer. Not Nathan, who thought I was a painter with a modest trust fund. Not his mother, Evelyn, whose smile was a blade. Morning came, Seattle's rain-soaked haze seeping through the penthouse. I craved a quiet moment with Nathan, maybe a walk through Pike Place's bustle. Instead, Evelyn arrived at 8:03 a.m., her pearl earrings glinting like warning lights. She held an uncapped pen and a leather folder, a notary in a charcoal suit trailing her, his seal gleaming with intent. "Good morning, darling," Evelyn purred, her voice smooth as a corporate pitch. "Let's make this quick, a formality to welcome you to the family." She set the folder on the glass table, her nails tapping. A countdown. The notary's eyes pinned me like I was a contract to be signed. Instinct froze me. The air was too heavy, the weight of a pre-decided fate. I stepped forward, barefoot, and opened the folder. Durable power of attorney, financial and domestic affairs. My stomach twisted. This wasn't a welcome. It was a theft. "This is unexpected," I said, voice soft but sharp, testing the waters. "Mind if I have my attorney look it over?" Evelyn's smile held, but her eyes flickered, a crack in her mask. "Of course, sweetheart," she said, too sweet, too fast. "Just a family thing." "No pressure." "No pressure." "Sure." I closed the folder, fingers lingering on the leather. I'd grown up invisible, overlooked by my parents, underestimated by my sisters. Invisibility teaches you to watch, to spot the tells in people's faces. Evelyn saw me as a pawn. Perfect. Let her. Nathan stirred, shuffling into the room. "Everything okay?" he called, his golden boy charm on display. He glanced at the folder, then his mother, a look passing between them I wasn't meant to see. "Just a chat with your mom?" I said, smiling like the dutiful bride. He nodded, kissed my cheek, and wandered to the coffee machine, oblivious. Or pretending. Evelyn left, the notary her shadow. The uncapped pen stayed on the table. A challenge. I didn't touch it. Instead, I locked the bedroom door, opened my laptop, and checked the server logs. The hack had tried again at 4:12 a.m. Persistent. The Vancouver IP was tied to a shell company, Nexus Dynamics, too close for coincidence. A knock. "Lazara?" Nathan, coaxing. "Breakfast?" I closed the laptop, pulse steady, mind racing. "Coming," I called, slipping the folder back into its hiding place. As I stepped out, my phone buzzed. A new alert. Someone had tried accessing my personal email, the one tied to Cascade's board. My breath caught. This wasn't just a hack. It was a siege. The morning unfolded like a tightrope walk. Nathan suggested brunch at a trendy Belltown spot, all exposed brick and overpriced avocado toast. I agreed, needing to read him, to see if he was part of this. But as I drove to meet him, my car's brakes felt soft, sluggish. On the coastal highway, with Puget Sound glittering to my left, the pedal sank too far. I swerved, heart pounding, as the car veered toward a guardrail. I slammed the emergency brake, stopping inches from the edge. A mechanic later confirmed it. The brake lines had been tampered with. Someone didn't just want my company, they wanted me gone. At the cafe, Nathan was all charm, folding his hands like he was pitching a startup. "You've been working hard," he said, syrup dripping over untouched pancakes. "Proud of you, babe." His smile was too perfect, rehearsed. "Thanks," I said, stirring my iced coffee, watching him. "You wanted to talk?" He hesitated. "This house stuff with Mom. The trust. I didn't mean for it to feel like we're ganging up." I tilted my head. "Weren't you?" He chuckled, nervous. "Okay, maybe not the best approach, but now that we're married, maybe we start a family trust. For the future. Kids, legacy, you know." Legacy. The word twisted my gut. My phone buzzed under the table, a text from an unknown number. "Sign it or the next car won't stop." My blood went cold. I glanced at Nathan, his eyes on his own phone, a name flashing briefly, V.V. Klein. He flipped it over, grinning sheepishly. "Work. Coordinator from the agency." "Uh-huh," I said, voice flat. I didn't push, not yet. But the threat lingered, a shadow over the table. Back home, I couldn't shake the unease. The brake sabotage, the server hack, the email breach. Someone was closing in. I slipped into my home office, locked the door, and checked my encrypted dashboard. Cascade's sales were up 15%, partnerships pending. My secret empire was thriving, but vulnerable. I opened my journal, typing, "Silence isn't submission, it's my chessboard." Then, a notification. A $25,000 0 cents withdrawal from our joint account, labeled E-Tech Solutions. I called Nathan. "What's E-Tech?" I asked, voice steady. A pause, a soft breath on his end. "Just a setup fee for Mom's consulting firm," he said, casual. "Thought it was fine. We're family now, right? No need to be so formal." I swallowed my anger. We agreed no joint account moves without both signatures. He laughed, dismissive. "Come on, Lazara. Don't you trust me?" Trust. The word stuck like a splinter. I hung up, opened a business registry, and found E-Tech Solutions, formed 2 months before the wedding. Nathan was co-founder, Evelyn the registered agent. Its purpose: corporate asset reallocation, not consulting. Theft. That night, at Evelyn's San Francisco mansion for her famous dinner, the air was thick with jazz and pretense, roast chicken, linen napkins, and Evelyn's calculated warmth. Halfway through, I folded my napkin and said, "I came across something interesting. E-Tech Solutions." Evelyn's fork paused, her jaw tightening. Nathan chuckled nervously. "She's been Googling again." He smiled. "Due diligence is a habit." Silence stretched taut as a wire. Evelyn shifted to garden renovations, but I'd planted the seed. Later, I drove to a Portland co-working space, a nondescript building smelling of coffee and ambition. I swiped in, settled at a desk, and opened my dashboard. Then an alarm blared. Motion sensors in the office. A shadow moved outside the window. I ducked, heart racing, as glass shattered. Someone had broken in, targeting my files. I crawled under the desk, clutching my laptop, and waited until the footsteps faded. The files were safe, encrypted, but the message was clear. They were watching. I returned home, Nathan humming in the kitchen, oblivious. I didn't mention the break-in. Instead, I opened my safe, pulled out the prenup, and found the clause: if a spouse tries to manipulate trust assets, a corporate freeze kicks in. My grandfather had seen this coming. I whispered, "Thank you." The next day, at a charity gala in Bellevue, I sipped champagne, scanning the crowd. A waiter offered me a drink, his eyes lingering too long. I took it, but something felt off. The glass had a faint acrid smell. I set it down, pulse spiking, and slipped to the bathroom. A quick test with a kit I carried. Paranoia pays off. Confirmed it. Laced with sedatives. Someone wanted me out of the picture, pliable or worse. Back at the penthouse, I installed hidden cameras in my study and guest room, angling for whispers. I backed up every email, log, and transaction to a private cloud. Then Evelyn appeared at my door, Notary in tow, holding a deed to transfer my waterfront condo to her and Nathan. "Just administrative," she said, smiling. "Protects the family home." "My condo's in a premarital trust," I said, scanning the document. "No liens, no mortgage." She waved it off. "Since it's marital now, Dean's name should be on it. Tax benefits." I took the paper, my mind racing. Nathan appeared, barefoot, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "No big deal," he muttered. "Mom explained it." "No big deal?" I asked, voice even. "You're signing my home to you and your mother." He exhaled. "You're making it sound shady." "Isn't it?" I folded the deed, meeting his eyes. "We agreed to keep assets separate." He shrugged. "Plans change. We're a unit now." I nodded, cool as ice. "I'll think about it." Evelyn's smile flickered. "Take your time, but fiscal deadlines loom." After they left, I stood by the window, the deed in hand. The curtains swayed, but the weight was heavier. That afternoon, my office building's elevator lurched, then stopped. The air grew stale, my phone signal dead. I pried the panel open, finding cut wires. Someone had trapped me. I climbed through the hatch, heart pounding, and escaped via the shaft, scraping my hands, but alive. I drove to a law office downtown, meeting Clara Monroe. I slid the deed across her desk. "What happens if I sign?" She scanned it. "You'd lose your condo. They could sell or borrow against it without you." "It's in my grandfather's trust," I said. Her eyebrow rose. "Then they'd need to prove spousal entitlement. But the trust's clause blocks transfers without board review. Signing risks a breach." I nodded, storing the deed in my safe. That night, I emailed my grandfather's lawyer, attaching the deed. No dramatics, just facts. The fuse was lit. The Seattle skyline glowed through my penthouse windows, a constellation of ambition and betrayal. It was Sunday, 3 days after Evelyn's attempt to seize my condo with her notary and uncapped pen. My laptop hummed softly on the glass desk, its screen displaying Cascade Innovations' dashboard, 15% revenue growth, new partnerships flagged, and a blinking alert from the server logs. Another intrusion attempt, this one bolder, originating from a Seattle IP. My fingers froze above the keys. They weren't just coming for my company. They were closing in on my life. I'm Lazara Hart and I don't flinch. I strategize. My grandfather's words anchored me. Don't let them think you're weak because you're kind. His legacy, a $20 million 0-cents tech empire, was mine to protect. Hidden from my husband Nathan, his mother Evelyn, and their web of greed. The hacked servers, tampered brakes, shattered glass at my co-working space, the poisoned champagne, the sabotaged elevator. They weren't accidents. They were moves in a game I hadn't chosen but was ready to play. Nathan was in the kitchen, humming over a pot of chili, his golden boy charm dialed to 11. "Hey, stranger," he called, stirring, like he hadn't tried to sign my condo away. "Thought I'd cook tonight." My way of saying thanks for brunch. I poured herbal tea, the steam curling like my suspicions. "Thoughtful," I said, voice light but eyes sharp. He didn't catch the edge. He never did. "We're a team, right?" he said, glancing over with that practiced smile. I sipped my tea, meeting his gaze over the rim. "I guess we'll see." He chuckled, oblivious, and excused himself for errands. The second the door clicked shut, I moved to my office, heart steady but mind racing. I opened my monitoring dashboard. An alert flashed. Nathan's phone had connected to the courthouse Wi-Fi. My pulse quickened. He was filing something, likely joint ownership papers to claim my assets. I didn't wait. I opened my secure folder, attached the amendment documents Clara Monroe had drafted, and hit send. The confirmation blinked. My corporate freeze was in motion, locking Nathan out of Cascade's shares. By the time he raised his pen at the courthouse, I'd rewritten the board. But the game wasn't over. That night, as I reviewed the prenup in my locked office, a new danger emerged. My phone buzzed with a security alert. Someone had triggered the motion sensors in my study. I froze, the hairs on my neck rising. The cameras I'd installed caught a shadow slipping through the window. A figure in black, gloved hands rifling my desk. My heart pounded as I remotely locked the safe, but the intruder yanked at it, tools glinting. I dialed 911, whispering my address, but the line cut abruptly. Static hissed. Someone had jammed the signal. I grabbed a letter opener, my only weapon, and crouched behind the door, breath shallow. The intruder fled when sirens wailed in the distance, but they'd left a USB drive plugged into my desktop. A Trojan, ready to siphon Cascade's data. I yanked it out, hands trembling, and uploaded the camera footage to my cloud. This wasn't just theft, it was war. Morning brought a deceptive calm. Nathan returned, acting like the courthouse visit never happened, kissing my forehead as I scrambled eggs. "You're spoiling me," he said, scrolling his phone. I smiled, sliding his plate across the counter. "It's a special occasion. You survived brunch without pitching stocks." He grinned, oblivious, and left for a meeting. I watched his car disappear, then drove downtown to meet James Holt, my grandfather's attorney. The law office, tucked behind frosted glass and West Coast art, felt like a fortress. James stood as I entered, his handshake warm but his eyes sharp. "Lazara," he said, "your grandfather left a just-in-case packet. I hoped we'd never need it." "I didn't either," I replied, voice edged. But things changed. I played the recording from last night, Nathan's hushed voice, caught by my bedroom camera. "She hasn't signed yet, but I'll get it. Just time." James exhaled. retrieving a sealed envelope from a locked drawer. Inside was a Postmar 37 amendment trigger protocol, a clause hidden even from the prenup. If a spouse manipulated trust assets under false pretenses, the prenup voided, and all shares locked to me, the original heir. "Oh, saw this coming," I murmured, throat tight with gratitude and grief. "Not Nathan, but the type." James nodded. "He worried someone would love your name, not you. Kindness is easy to target." I didn't cry. I said, "Let's start the process." We spent hours drafting the amendment. Every share, dollar, and deed in Cascade would be restricted from marital claims. Voting rights, too, a junior lawyer warned. Act before he files jointly. I nodded. "I will." But danger struck again that afternoon. As I left the law office, my car's dashboard lit up, tire pressure critically low. I pulled over on a quiet street near Capitol Hill, rain blurring the windshield. The rear tire was slashed, a clean cut deliberate. Footprints in the mud led to an alley, and a figure watched from the shadows, phone in hand, filming. My skin prickled. I snapped a photo of the license plate on a nearby van, unmarked, suspicious, and drove to a mechanic on my spare. "This wasn't wear and tear," he said, frowning. "Someone meant for you to stop." I returned home, the condo's lights casting long shadows. Nathan was watching basketball, acting like the world hadn't shifted. I didn't mention the tire. Instead, I slipped into my office, opened the prenup, and highlighted clauses on asset control. My grandfather's foresight was surgical. Any attempt to modify ownership triggered an automatic freeze. I exhaled, whispering, "Thank you." That night, another threat. At a tech conference in Bellevue, I presented Cascade's latest analytics tool, the room buzzing with investors. Midway through, a spotlight flickered, then crashed from the rigging, missing me by inches. The crowd gasped, but I kept talking, voice steady, eyes scanning for Evelyn or Nathan. Neither was there, but a text arrived. "Next time, it won't miss." I saved it, forwarded it to James, and finished my speech, defiance burning through my fear. Someone wanted me silenced permanently. By Monday, I was back in the boardroom, glass walls reflecting Seattle's gray. My mentor, Sarah, sat across, arms folded, gaze steady. At the head, James adjusted his glasses. "This amendment," he said, tapping the packet, "ensures no spouse can influence Cascade unless they're a founding shareholder." The board voted, unanimous. I signed, my ring catching the light. I didn't look at it. Motion carried, James said. I exhaled, a breath held for years. But there was more. James slid an older folder across, pages yellowed but preserved. My grandfather had transferred 26% voting rights to me in 2 silent subsidiaries, giving me 85% control of Cascade and its shadows. I wasn't just CEO. I was untouchable. "You're the final decision maker," James said. I nodded, no smile. Across town, Nathan wasn't celebrating. He'd walked into the courthouse, clean-shaven, folder under arm, expecting to file joint ownership. The clerk barely looked up. "There's a freeze in place, sir. Filed by Lazara Hart, 917 IMM. His face drained, and he dialed Evelyn. Voicemail. Then me. I let it ring. Back home, I left an envelope on the counter. Our wedding photo, Evelyn's uncapped pen visible in her purse. My note. "You didn't ask what I owned." Nathan tore through the condo, finding empty closets, bare drawers, the safe open and vacant. His name was off the deed. He called Evelyn again. Nothing. Then 3 knocks. An officer handed him a manila folder. "You've been served." The judge later stared down Nathan's team. "Her filings predate the marriage. The trust is separate, the prenup binding." Nathan's jaw tightened, disbelief cracking his charm. The judge added, She outmaneuvered you." I didn't glance at him. I wasn't protecting money, I was protecting my identity. Weeks earlier, I'd stood in my grandfather's garden, holding a velvet box with 2 rings. One delicate, engraved with our initials, the other a gold band with a hidden microchip, tracking attempts to access my trust. "Never sign a contract you didn't write," he'd said over tea. I'd transferred my shares to a silent partner before the wedding, making me appear penniless. Nathan never questioned it, too busy curating his guest list. Now, with divorce papers filed, those shares had returned under an irrevocable clause. Nathan's lawyer tried one last push. "This smells like fraud." The judge didn't blink. "It smells like preparation." The gavel fell. Nathan burst into my office that afternoon, door slamming. "Was any of this real?" he snapped. "The trusts, the prenup? Was I just a strategy?" I stood, calm. "I married you, not your bank account. But you and Evelyn treated me like a merger. I didn't trick you, Nathan. I protected what's mine." I slid off my ring, placing it on the table. It clinked, cold and final. He stared, then left without touching it. I sent the ring to Evelyn overnight with a note. "Next time, bring a capped pen." The next morning, my assistant handed me a folder. Cascade's profits were soaring post-restructure. I didn't smile. I sat by the window, letting silence settle. A message from James arrived. A land deal my grandfather had worked on had closed, titled in my name. "He'd be proud," it read. I believed it. I drove to an old Seattle warehouse, once a shipping hub, now gutted. Sawdust and steel lingered in the air. Behind a loose brick, I found an envelope. A photo of me at 4 on my grandfather's lap, his hands steadying me in front of his first office. His note: "This isn't an inheritance, Lazara. It's a mirror. Build what reflects you." I didn't sell the warehouse. I transformed it into a community tech hub, free coding classes, a library, a voucher program for single parents needing laptops. People came, unadvertised. A woman brought muffins, asking, "Why stay when you could have sold it all?" I looked at her, because value isn't just money, it's legacy. Weeks later, I ran into Nathan at a cafe. His suit hung loose, his confidence frayed. "Was it worth it?" he asked, voice flat. "Not the money," I said. "The clarity." He walked away, a chapter closed. At sunset, I visited my grandfather's grave, the air sharp with early spring. I left 3 things: Cascade's new charter, leaner and human, the photo grounding me, and my ring glinting in the fading light. "I almost forgot who I was," I whispered. "But you didn't." "Thank you." I walked to the front gate to Wove. "I thank you." The candle I lit that night wasn't for mourning, it was for honoring. They wanted my company, my land, my name, but I inherited myself,